Hi everyone, welcome back to Stephan Livera podcast, brought to you by Bold. For American listeners, go to getbold.io to stack sats, and Bold also has a 2 of 3 vault where you can hold 2 keys. Now, onto the show today, we're going to be chatting about Alby and Bitcoin and Lightning and all these things with Bumi. Bumi is working on the Alby project, and I think you might have been working on a few other things in and around the Bitcoin world as well, right? But welcome to the show, Bumi.
Thank you very much. Excited to be here.
Great. So let's chat about what you're working on and what's the latest with Alby. I know there's been some updates there, Alby Hub, and a few things we'll get into. I guess my first experience, and listeners, you can check out my earlier episode with Moritz where we spoke about Alby. But that was maybe a year or two ago. I have used Alby. I do use it myself just as an extension. Let's get into that. What are some of the what's your involvement with Alby, and let's go from there.
Yeah. A lot of things have been happening. I mean, generally, like in the whole ecosystem, in the whole space, right? So, especially since this last chat, so it's always exciting to be involved there and see like all these developments. And I'm one of the co-founders. I was writing actually one of the first lines of code of Alby, what became Alby. That was the Alby browser extension. I think it's actually now 3 years ago, or 3 years, something like that. I would need to count. The first lines of code were written at one of the Fulmo hack days, Lightning hack days, during Christmas back then. And generally we are working on the question or the idea how we can use Bitcoin as open source money to power like digital economies. Like we believe that Lightning and Bitcoin in general is used as the native asset to transact digitally, and we have to see what we can do with that, right? So that's the exciting part, because now we have this, I always call it programmable money, right? But we have to see, okay, what does it actually mean? How can we do that? What does it change? What kind of new use cases are possible? And so this is an exciting
And I guess
space.
just an overview from my perspective, in the early days, it was basically a browser extension that allowed you to either connect your Lightning node, or back then I think you had a custodial Lightning thing, which now that's gone. But the idea is that you could use it to do Lightning payments in a very seamless way on the internet, sending and receiving. And the idea is that the extension could sort of pick up things from the page, and that would make it easier. So as an example, people could put like their Lightning symbol and the Lightning address, and then it would read that, and then you could tip them, or it would sort of, if you're on a page that's Lightning supported, it would sort of pick that up and be like, hey, do you want to pay this invoice in Lightning? And that kind of thing. Just the background for people who aren't familiar. But I guess that was the extension. Do you want to now talk a little bit about, just give us an overview. What's the suite looking now? Because I know you've got Alby Go and Alby Hub.
Yeah, I mean, maybe to the extension, because that explains it also quite nicely. The idea with the extension was to allow anything that runs in the browser, like any web application, to interact with the Lightning network. So, and to make that possible, we needed to teach Lightning to the browser itself, right? So that means that web applications, then as you said, can have certain simple JavaScript APIs, can have certain simple interactions that then use the user's wallet. Right. And back then I often explained it in a way that you come to a website, and as, for example, the website requests access to your microphone or requests access to your camera, if you do a video call, then it can also access, it can request access to your wallet to do a certain payment. And if we have these kind of interactive ways, these programmable ways, we can like make much nicer user experiences, right? And so this was the general concept, or the general thought where we were coming from. The browser extension was then kind of the bridge between the browser and the user's wallet or the user's node. So you could connect an LND node to make it simple. We also then allowed users to get an account to set this up. Yeah, I mean, the browser extension is actually still one of our major projects or major
and we should also mention there's the Nostr part of it also, right? Because that's another way that you can kind of shield your... so the thing, for people who don't know what Nostr is, it's like a notes and other stuff transmitted by relays. It's kind of like the first app of that is kind of like a decentralized Twitter or X, but there are other apps, of course. And one thing I found useful about Nostr is it allows you to sort of shield your NSEC, which is like your Nostr private key, from the apps you're sort of interacting with, or without kind of having to copy paste it. That's kind of the easy aspect of it. That's something I found easy to use with Alby. So do you want to just explain a bit about Alby and the Nostr connection?
Yeah. The thought there is actually quite similar. With Nostr, you have your identity is represented with keys, and you have this private key similar to that you have in the Bitcoin space that holds your money. In the Nostr case, you have the private key that is then used to sign events, sign messages that you publish in the Nostr ecosystem. And so just similar to your Lightning wallet that you have in the extension, you then also have the Nostr key in the extension. And you can like really imagine it as your wallet that you have, like your physical wallet, right? You have money in there, but you also have like an ID card in there. And that's kind of the digital, like we are doing that in the digital world here. And then I can go to a Nostr client, like Primal or Snort or Iris, many of them. I can go to those and I can come already with my identity. You can bring my identity with it because I own the identity, I own the keys, right? That's a very different part to what we actually have if you use X or Facebook or one of these tools where you can just log in and the identity is actually owned by these platforms. So it's like I'm more self-sovereign there. And I can do that with the extension. The extension holds the keys. I can go there. I can then allow one of these clients to request permissions to do a signature. And then I can also use the extension to pay on these sites. And the exciting part in the Nostr space, actually, and this is also a very good example, is the zapping. Which you can say it kind of replaces a bit the like button, but it's a much more stronger signal if it's not just a stupid like button or like a like button that has no value, but I actually put some sats behind it. So if it's a valuable post for me, if I like the post, then I click zap and I send 1,000 sats over to the publisher, for example. These kind of things are suddenly becoming possible.
Right. And so, just as an example, you might be scrolling on Primal on the web page, and you might have connected your Alby browser extension to Primal on the web app, and then when you're zapping, it's kind of now connecting up your own Lightning node. So if you want to do it with your own Lightning node, that's another way to do that. So different ways it works there, and you can configure different aspects of that. And then, the other aspect of it is, in the early days of Nostr, I remember people just had to copy paste their NSEC into clients, right? So it was just sort of like, there's like some new client and people are having to just trust, the code. I mean, unless they're reading the code of it all. And there's just a lot of trust involved with that. Whereas if you're using Alby browser extension, it's sort of like a middle layer there that kind of helps you a little bit, at least not having to copy paste the NSEC all the time. And I guess, as I understand, those apps are requesting permission out of the Nostr app. So yes, out of the Alby app. So in that sense, you're putting a bit more, you're putting some trust into the Alby app to not, steal your NSEC or something or post it or whatever. But then at least you're not having to trust every individual Nostr app that you interact with.
Yeah. You're kind of disconnecting the application from the keys that represent your identity that you are actually owning. So, and if you put the keys into every single application, that would be if you give a merchant your private key to your Bitcoin wallet just to get some money out of that. So that's kind of
Right.
not
It would
how
be
it
crazy,
works,
right?
right? That would be crazy. You just want to, yeah,
You want to sign a message using the private
exactly.
key
Yeah,
as opposed to giving them the private key. And the
exactly.
idea with the cryptography of Bitcoin and with Nostra, the idea is you're signing the message, and that is sort of proof in the system that, yes, Bumi really does hold this private key
Yes.
for these coins, or in this case, Bumi does really hold the private key for this Nostra identity. And I've
Yes.
accepted that this identity made this post, or that kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the powerful thing, because I can really keep that. I have this in like the browser extension, for example, which is like a client-side application. It really only runs on the user's computer. And I can take that and go to different clients. So I'm not dependent on only one client, but I can take the same like key and the same identity, then the same profile to different clients. And I have exactly the same social graph, the same people that I'm following, the same profile that is out there, and so on.
Yeah.
So
one other point, just while we're on it, on the extension and browsers, the obvious question a lot of people might have is, oh, hang on, aren't browser extensions like insecure? Like, is that really the best way to store private keys, or NSEC in this case, which is your Nostra private key? Or even if it's connected to your Lightning node, it kind of has access to at least some of your money, even if you keep most of it in your hardware wallet or your multi-sig, whatever. Can you address that? The security concerns there.
I mean, ultimately, it builds on the security model of the browser, and browsers are these have been around forever. They like Google Chrome, Mozilla, they provide these APIs that extensions can use and can build on top of it. So it ultimately relies on the trust of those browsers, and you are already trusting that in a sense because you use it to access the websites and so on. So browsers are really good at that. So browsers are really good at also like having separations and making sure that also extensions or websites can only access what they're allowed to access. So that's actually pretty good. Of course, it's nothing for you don't hold your life savings in there, right? So this is what it's your daily use. Like in terms of money, that's also the Lightning case. It's like more of your daily spending wallet that you use there. And also with the Nostr keys, you're daily using it. You're actively using it. You're making many signatures, like when you're like using one of these applications. So it's for sure hot just because it's on the computer. But yeah, as I said, it relies on these like security models of these big, like nothing that we actually implemented. It relies on the securities models of these big browser vendors.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, I guess even a few years ago, there were a lot of these 0 days, and probably even today, there's still a lot of these 0 days that come out for Chrome or Firefox or these big browsers. So I mean, that is always a risk, but I guess you also have to trade off of. Imagine if you had to like get your hardware wallet out every time you wanted to do a Nostra post or a Nostra zap. It would just be impractical, right? So you sort of have to find the balance of security versus convenience, and that's where as you said, listeners, make sure you're not keeping like large amounts on these things. Like this is larger amounts are for your hardware wallets and your multi-sig and that kind of thing, and this is for your smaller, let's say, spending balance, that kind of thing.
Exactly.
So
it's always a trade-off, right? So I mean, it's pretty good, but obviously don't put your life savings in there, right? So and also the Nostr identity, it's pretty good, but it's not. It's not your life savings, right? So that's kind of the
okay, cool. So we've spoken about that. I think listeners make your own decisions there. We've spoken a bit about the extension. Let's talk about Alby Hub and Alby Go and some of these things. Maybe Alby Hub would be a good place to start. So can you explain what is that? What is Alby Hub?
Mm-hmm. So Alby Hub is our new self-custodial, self-sovereign Lightning wallet, and that is built for humans and machines. I would say so, and it's built around the question how a wallet should look like, for real programmable money, for real programmable open source money. And, as I said before, our goal is to integrate Bitcoin deep into any applications out there, right? So that actually the payment becomes often a side effect of a use case that you're doing. So for example, the zapping we mentioned, or listening to a song, in the background, you're streaming sats to the artist. The podcasting space is quite similar, right? I'm listening to the podcast, and while I'm listening to the podcast, I'm streaming sats to the podcaster. So these kind of things we want to make possible. And so our the Alby Hub Lightning Wallet is built around the NWC protocol. We probably can also talk a little bit about that.
Oh, yeah, we should get into that as well. We should explain that, but go on.
So it's built around that protocol, which allows applications to talk to the wallet again. So quite similar to what we do with the extension. Websites can talk to the extension. And here the idea is, okay, how can we allow generally any application out there to interact with the wallet in a way also that the user doesn't have to actively, do it, for example, with scanning a QR code or something like that.
Okay, so with Alby Hub, can you just explain a bit on the self-custodial part, like where are the private keys for this, who's running the Lightning node underlying this, and what about the LSP? Can you explain a bit of those elements?
So very important, it's self-custodial, so the user owns the keys. It's built on LDK, or it has this embedded. It actually has two ways to run it, but the main one is using the embedded LDK node, which we built on top of it. So shout out to the LDK team. It wouldn't be possible without them. So that's huge. LDK is this full Lightning implementation that we're using. So it's a full Lightning node. The user owns the keys. The user has the keys wherever the user run it. What is important for us, or what we build Alby Hub around, is that the user can run it anywhere. But we, for many of the things that are required or that we want to enable, an always-on Lightning node is required. So it's actually a bit different to the typical mobile application where you just open the app and then the Lightning node is started. Our idea, also to make a lot of things more easy, is that the node is an always-on node. So it runs always, similar to LND, right? It always runs. But anyway, too much detail maybe there now. But the important part is the user can run it anywhere. That means they can run it on a desktop computer. They can run it on a Raspberry Pi, on a home server like Raspberry Blitz or Umbrel, or it can also run in the cloud. And, for example, on a small virtual private server, it really has limited resource requirements. And to make it easy, we also provide if people want cloud hosting. So that's we have an Alby Cloud where we deploy one of these nodes for the user. It's fully encrypted and everything, and the user has to unlock it. I don't know if you want to go into the detail of the security model there, but it's a small virtual server that we provide to the users to make it easy for them to run the Alby Hub.
Back to the show in a moment. This show brought to you by CoinKite.com, the creators of the best Bitcoin hardware security devices, such as the Coldcard Mark IV and the new Coldcard Q. Now, we use Bitcoin hardware security devices to keep our keys offline, our private keys offline. Now, the way these work is you can do that setup, write down your 12 or 24 words on the seed word cards, and keep that secure. Now, you can use this device to interact with the Bitcoin network using software such as Sparrow Wallet, Electrum, or Vector Desktop, or Nunchuck as a few examples. Now, you have a range of security features that you can use with these devices, such as passphrases. You can use seed XOR, or my favorite is multi-signature. Now, If you're starting in a basic way, just start with the device and the USB-C cable, plug it directly to the computer and use it that way, and then later improve your setup. But I believe these devices are great at helping secure your coins, especially as you start to migrate up into multi-signature security. But don't be disheartened or don't be scared away. They are accessible, and I think you actually do learn about Bitcoin in the process. So to get yours, go to coinkite.com, use code Livera to get a discount on your cold card. The lead sponsor of this show is Bold, the best place to buy, sell, and save Bitcoin. For listeners in the US, Bold lets you secure your financial future with complete peace of mind by integrating a low-fee, Bitcoin-only brokerage with next-gen multi-sig vaults. With Bold, you can smash buy Bitcoin or set a DCA plan for only 0.99% fees and seamlessly deposit the Bitcoin direct to your Bold vault. The Bold vault is a 2 or 3 collaborative multi-sig where you hold 2 keys and Bold holds 1 as a redundant backup, protecting against loss or theft. You can use Trezor, Ledger, or Cold Card hardware wallets to spin up a Bold vault in just a few minutes, and the Bold vault is the only collaborative custody vault available with 0 monthly fees. They're also offering 0 fees on your first $10,000 of Bitcoin buys and $25 of free Bitcoin when you buy $100 of Bitcoin or more. Try Bold today and upgrade your stacking experience over at getbold.io. And now, back to the show. Interesting. So, I guess as you've explained it, there are multiple options. You can run it on the typical Umbrel and Raspberry Blitz and those node in a box packages, but you can also have it in the cloud. And as I'm understanding you, Alby Cloud is that similar to or a competitor to Greenlight as an example?
Not directly. You could more likely probably compare it to what Voltage was doing. So Voltage was allowing you to deploy LND nodes in their cloud. It's a bit similar to Greenlight in the sense that Greenlight also runs nodes, but there is even more separation in there. In Greenlight, you just have the node and the keys are more separated, and we have still this kind of combined application that is running in the cloud. The keys are only held in memory and so on. So this is kind of the model similar to what LND is doing.
Right, I see. And so then this part can't just be it's not just in the browser extension as an example, right? This is a separate thing to the Alby browser extension, but I guess can you use Alby Hub through I presume you can, right? Through the browser extension? Right. So they're kind of, I guess they are conceptually separate, but they can be used together. But in the case of Alby Hub, you need an always online server running. That could be your own home server, or that could be a cloud server. But that's kind of bottom line. And it's basically running LDK to be your Lightning node.
Yeah. And the thing is, for example, because in Lightning you still require channels, right?
Yeah.
You still require channels to be connected to the network. You need the incoming and outgoing capacity. And our goal there is, or our concept is there, that the user has one of those, right? You have one node, you have one where you manage the channels, and then you have certain other applications that are interacting with this node. As opposed to if you would have different wallets and different applications, and in each of them you would need to open a channel again, you would need to have money again. Imagine, for example, you have the mobile application that needs channels, you have the browser extension that needs channels.
Oh yeah, there'd be massive duplication, unnecessary,
Exactly. A lot of duplication, and especially channels also come with a cost. So it would be much way too expensive also. And that's why our concept is okay, you have this one hub where you set it up once, you connect it to the network, you get the channels, and then you can interact with it from the different applications that you want to use. And the application then, for example, is the browser extension. The application is also mobile application, what we have with Go now, for example. Or it can be also then, a Nostr client, a podcast client, or anything else. This is where then the Nostr Wallet Connect
together with your own Alby Hub. So each user will have their own. The idea is they have their own Alby Hub node. And then can you explain a bit on the LSP side? Like, who is the LSP? Do they manually set up and manage channels, or is that kind of automatically done with like on-the-fly channels and this kind of thing?
Yeah. So LSPs is also something that, has not been around like a year ago in that extent that we have it today. LSPs are the service providers that provide these channels, that provide users with liquidity. And there are a bunch of them that are now running really, really well maintained. And what we try to do with Alby Hub is also provide users with like easy defaults. So for example, one of the biggest issues of running a node was always you started it and then you need to get a channel. But the question is like, what is a good channel peer? Where do I connect to? Who do I open a channel with? So, and even if I got this, the second question is, where do I get incoming capacity from that I can receive payments? And LSPs basically answer this question, and we focus very much on default user experiences, on default UI flows, to give the user, to make it easy for the user to have a default, right? So that means like if you set up Alby Hub, the first thing is that it says, hey, great, okay, you're set up, and now we open a channel. So, and you get a channel then from one of the LSPs that we've integrated. I think we got 4 or 5 LSPs integrated. That's kind of Megalith, LN Server, Olympus, for example. And the user gets a default channel, I think of 1 million Satoshis. And with that, the user can immediately start receiving Lightning payments. Users can still have advanced sections where they can still open manual channels with other peers if they want, but this is kind of the default flow.
Gotcha.
Part of the setup.
Yeah.
So.
And then can you explain the fees? And I guess there are fees at different levels, right? Because there might be the fee of if you're using Alby Cloud versus not, and then I guess each LSP would charge their own fees as well, right? So could you just explain roughly?
So what we do not do is just-in-time channels, what you hinted before. So we don't do that. Our concept right now, also for simplicity reasons, also for the user simplicity, is you set it up once and you get a long-running channel that is big enough that you don't actually have to rebalance it anymore or do a lot of channel management, right? So because like this is a really good default, and for most of the users that do send and receive, this is a really good setup. But yes, these channels come with a cost. That is the cost that the LSP is charging for providing you the channel, for providing the liquidity. Alby Hub is directly integrated with these LSPs, so this is like transparently coming directly from them. So there is a cost involved if people want to do that. As said, they can still use it if they want to open channels on their own. That's for sure possible. But with the LSP charge users to open a channel and give incoming liquidity.
Yeah, I see. And then so the actual fee, I can see, just checking the site, Alby Cloud, so that's kind of the fee on your side, 21,000 sats or 50% off for 3 months, 10,500 sats. So what is the... my maths is horrible. I'm not going to try. But
let me add here quite directly something. Because that's a good thing. So, right, yeah. So Alby Cloud, we charge for hosting. And it's an interesting topic because we thought, okay, like first of all, we charge using NWC itself, right? It's a subscription payment that will automatically using NWC, and the wallet will pay for itself ultimately, kind of. So, and we thought, okay, we are a Bitcoin company. Let's put a Bitcoin price tag to it. And we put the 21,000 sats to it, which was a bit more than $10, or roughly this $10 at the time being, I think. And in the recent 2 weeks, we actually got a lot of criticism because the price of Bitcoin went up quite fast, and we couldn't adjust yet our prices to the increased purchasing power of Bitcoin, right? So this is actually something that we are changing, so that we denominate our prices in dollars. We still charge in Bitcoin, but the prices will be denominated the prices will be denominated in dollars, also just to take away this complexity from the user, that they have to think how much it actually is. Because even though we are, maybe some of us are, Bitcoin maxis or
the
living
unit
under
of count
Bitcoin
maxis
standards.
Are in shambles.
So,
I mean, look, I understand. Obviously, the more hardcore people might try to cancel you for not being unit of account maxi, but I think the goal here is to get people onboarded. So I can understand the rationale there, and maybe in the future when there's less volatility, but in fairness, volatility is coming down over time. But maybe we're not there yet for people to be fully unit of account maximalist in that sense.
But we actually thought it's an interesting learning for sure as a project, I have to say, because we ultimately thought, okay, it's a good thing, Also, the volatility wasn't that big, so we adjust the volatility every a period of time. But then, as we know, Bitcoin, it quickly goes up, it quickly goes down at times, and then this is maybe a bit of an issue, because right now,
gotcha.
So
that's kind of the rough price for the Alby Cloud aspect of it. Can you just explain, I guess just roughly, I know you mentioned there's 4 or 5 LSPs, but what's sort of the ballpark that someone would pay for this inbound channel and the channel liquidity aspect?
Mm-hmm. So in dollar terms, that would be like $10-15, which is a one-time setup fee for the channel. What we focus a lot is on that the channel is open as long as possible. So the channels actually stay open if people are using it. At some point, if people stop using it, the channels will be closed, or LSPs will close the channels. But what our concept is, as I said, you open the channel once and you have it for the whole lifetime. So, and we are also experimenting with different concepts to solve this barrier of entry of this $10-15 that we still have through other means. So for example, that you have it's part of the subscription, or it's part of a special service that we will provide, so that you don't have these high upfront cost, but that we can solve it or we can package it in a service package.
Right. So the user doesn't have to get sort of hit upfront with the fees, that kind of thing.
Exactly.
Yeah. But I mean, look, ultimately, people have to remember that the fiat system government is fiat subsidized, right? So the bank might offer you a free debit card or free access to their ATM network or free access to, but it's fiat subsidized, right? They are getting all this money out of the loans, and that is a very fiat subsidized business. And this is over in Bitcoin land. If you want a certain level of freedom or a certain level of, being able to use Bitcoin, in terms of actually earning and spending Bitcoin, then it's a pay to play, right? This is the price. I think. So I think it's it is going to be a hard conversation amongst certain people who are sort of what about the people who are only earning a certain amount? But ultimately you've got to decide who you can serve and who you can't, who you're not able to make it, who's not able to make you're not able to make it cost effective for them. But I think for anybody who's let's play around with the numbers just to, explain it. So as an example, new user signs up, he wants Alby Cloud, so he's paying, that fiat fee. 10,500 sats right now, but you're going to change that to fiat terms. And he's paying in fiat terms maybe $10 or $15 for a channel. But let's say that's a 1 million sat channel. That's, at today's prices, what is it, 94,000 or 95,000? So $940 or something like that, right? That's how much capacity that person has in terms of earning and spending Bitcoin. And I guess the idea would be, as they're earning more and more, that amount might rise, right? They may have multiple channels, and then the point is you need to sort of pay this one-time setup fee, call it $20 or $30, and then from then on you're able to sort of do lots of cheaper transactions because it's on Lightning and you're not hitting the chain every time.
Yeah.
So I think for somebody who is regularly transacting, right? Like if you're zapping on Nostr, or you're kind of streaming sats, or you're earning sats, or maybe this is kind of like your little play around wallet, or maybe when you go out for lunch and dinner and you're paying someone back. This could make sense in those circumstances, so long as you're regularly transacting, because you don't necessarily have to hit the chain that often and pay the on-chain fee. You're just doing this kind of one-time setup fee, and maybe occasional channel, let's say either resize or getting a new channel inbound, right? That's how I'm thinking about it. Would you agree, disagree, or how would you add to that?
Exactly, that's how it is. So, and I think our emphasis is also on that. It's you set it up once, you connect to the network once through that channel. The channel is a decent size, so that it's typically enough for the average user to, send and receive and go back and forth without needing to do much of rebalancing, opening new channels, and all these complex things. So, and what we've seen also, what a lot of people tend to do a mistake is opening small channels, right? If they do it on,
right.
if you do it on own, like you open a 100,000 sats channel or 200,000 sats, and that's actually not very practical, because then you have not much capacity to send and receive, and that you add another channel, but then it adds a bit of some issues that you have to understand the Lightning network, like how payments there work, how the channel rebalancing works, and so on. And that's why our take is, get a decent setup, have a decent size of channels, and then you can send and receive, and you don't have to worry about, and the channel stays open. So the channel stays open like as long as possible. So, and we actually want to get to the point where we can say, okay, we can actually guarantee, and part of, like, for example, a fee that you pay to us as a service provider is that we make sure that you have enough, that the channel is open, and that you have enough capacity to send and receive, to not worry about that.
This show brought to you by Mempool.space, the world's leading Bitcoin visualizer. And now they've got an accelerator program. So if you have a transaction that you sent at a fee that was too low to get confirmed, now you can fix this with the Mempool accelerator. The way it works, you can go and search your transaction, scroll down, click accelerator, and you don't need an account. You can pay with Lightning, and then it'll show you it's now in the process of being accelerated, and then after a few minutes, it's confirmed. And so this is a great way to help you out if you are stuck. And this can happen where maybe your wallet doesn't have RBF or CPFP, or it might help you in situations where it's impractical to go and re-sign. So for example, multi-sig with keys in different locations. And thirdly, even in some Lightning scenarios, perhaps a forced close, you might not be able to use RBF. And so in this case, the Mempool accelerator can help you out. So keep it in mind, and you can find out more over at mempool.space/accelerator. Gotcha. And I guess, again, another question for the listeners who are interested about the technical aspects of it. What about paying on-chain out of your Lightning balance? Is there some kind of swap provider in the background, or splicing, or what's the thought there? Like, as an example, let's say I've set up the Alby Hub, I've got an LSP channel for $940 or $950, whatever, for 1 million sats, let's say, and I'm trying to pay for a conference ticket, and it's on-chain for $400, as an example, or whatever. Let's say the supplier doesn't have Lightning, and so I need to pay them on-chain, but my balance is in Lightning. How does it work for you guys?
I mean, we work on that everybody gets on Lightning for that, because also the conference ticket up to, like, a few $1,000s should be possible. That's to do in Lightning. So we definitely focus on that. So we definitely focus on Lightning. We want to focus on the Lightning adoption, or the second layers built on top of that. And we want to make that easy, streamlined, and so on. So right now we do not have any swap service directly in the hub, but I guess this will come. that you are able to do that. And right now you would just use one of the default swap services.
Gotcha. Because you could go to like a, let's say, bolts.exchange and use them as your swap provider. But right now, maybe it's a bit more manual, right? So I guess it would require the user to kind of manually go to bolts.exchange, paste in the Bitcoin address they want to pay to, use them and pay that Lightning invoice to then pay out. So, let's just say, let's chalk that one up to early days, but hopefully as Lightning adoption is getting easier and easier now, more and more people, especially at these values, right? Especially at the values kind of under $1,000 or under 1 million sat. Nowadays, it actually is pretty feasible to make those payments over Lightning. The question is just more like if the merchant that you're trying to buy from or the other party has not set up Lightning yet, right? Like they're just kind of doing Bitcoin on-chain only, then it's kind of a bit of a problem for now. But hopefully over time, it gets easier. And, what we've seen as an example is, even some of these new people who come out, like Proton Mail and Proton VPN and so on, I believe they're on-chain only. I don't know if they've set up Lightning support yet, or even Namecheap, right? They've done a lot of on-chain volume, but they don't have Lightning support yet. So it's kind of, some of this is like, I guess I'm going to put that down to teething problems. And yes, I think it's fair to say many of us thought Lightning would be more advanced than it is today. But at the same time, this is what it takes, right? I think this is the reality, and we have to sort of deal with reality and grapple with reality as it is. But I will say, I think we've seen some encouraging adoption in terms of a lot of exchanges, a lot of big service providers have turned on Lightning. So I'm hopeful. Let's see.
Yeah, I'm pretty confident. I mean, accepting on-chain Bitcoin has been around for much longer, right? So the tools are much better, and at the same time, it's definitely much easier to do, right? You have less complexity, that's for sure. Lightning is complex, and the tools are still still new, and the service provider like the LSPs, or also what we do with Alby Hub, that's still very new. But I think that's coming, and with that, it also makes it much easier for merchants to accept Lightning, right? They don't have to worry about that anymore right now. Like, for sure, channel management is an issue for merchants, but it will be taken away. So they don't have to worry about that anymore. And with that, we also will get more adoption, I think.
Yeah.
And that's why we focus on Lightning and not like on the on-chain parts, because we rather want to mod Lightning better than like making a good on-chain swap experience or something like that.
Gotcha. Yeah, I see. And then I see you've also got like a merchant aspect of it. I guess you're trying to also improve the merchant adoption. So the idea, I guess, in here is that they might use Alby Hub and Alby Cloud themselves, right?
Yes. I mean, and maybe we can talk a bit about NWC there now for a second, because NWC is this messaging layer, this messaging protocol, like called Nostr Wallet Connect. It actually also uses the Nostr relay concept, the Nostr relay infrastructure. And it's a messaging layer between applications and wallets. And that makes it quite easy for any application to interact with the wallet again. And one of the applications that we, for example, also have is as in the App Store of Alby Hub, is a point of sale solution. And it's actually the nice thing, the exciting thing is it's actually a quite super simple point of sale solution that is a purely client-side JavaScript application. It is very simple. It focuses very much on simplicity, and it builds on top of this NWC protocol, meaning that it connects to any wallet that supports NWC and is just using that one as a backend. So again, here we try to decouple the application from the actual wallet, and by doing that, building the application becomes much more easier, much more secure, because you don't have to have the Lightning complexity directly in. So, and with that, for example, the point of sale application is a really simple JavaScript application that anybody can build, that it's easily to host, that is very secure also, because it doesn't hold anything. It doesn't even hold keys. It only has the permission to create an invoice from the wallet through this messaging protocol. So, and yes, I mean, also with that, we hope there will be more specialized applications and more easy to use applications for merchants. And yeah, our point of sale application there is also got pretty good feedback so far from some of the, especially smaller merchants, right?
Yeah, I see. Let's talk a little bit about Nostr Wallet Connect as well, just to, I guess, explain that and round out some of the explanation there. As I'm understanding it, it's like a way to sort of connect different wallets with your provider. Can you maybe explain that a little bit more for us, just to get that a bit clearer?
So it is a way for applications to communicate with the wallet. So again, here we try to differentiate that, right? Or we try to decouple that. The wallet is Alby Hub, or CoinOS, for example, is also implementing NWC. There is an LN-Bits plugin for NWC, though there is quite some adoption around the NWC protocol. So it's not only like for the Alby Hub, but it's an open protocol that our other wallet providers are also using. And it's and so through this communication protocol, it means that applications can talk to any of these wallets through a standard interface. And that means building the application becomes much easier. And it gives the user much more choice. So for example, I can use Alby Hub. Somebody else uses a different wallet, but they can use the same applications that build on NWC. So it's kind of, you can imagine it as another layer on top of Lightning. Lightning is the settlement layer, and NWC is the communication layer on top of that.
Right, between different software and different apps. So
and
so the idea, help me get this right, the Nostr Wallet Connect protocol, is that for pushing invoices back and forth, or is that for pushing like a user intent to pay back and forth? Or like, can you explain that part for me?
So how it basically works is it's the intent. So there are again like very strict permissions that the user can set and the user can define on the wallet. And ultimately, you can imagine that an application, like the point of sale application, for example, is sending a message. Let's even call it like a direct message, like not to a human, but it sends a direct message to the wallet. And so the application writes a message, says, hey, please give me an invoice of 1,000 Satoshis, and sends that one to the wallet. The wallet then checks the signature, sees, okay, I know this application. I've given that application permission to request invoices, see transaction lead balances, and so on. And I check the permissions. I see, yes, this application has the permission to do that. The wallet creates the invoice and then encrypts it again and sends the message back to the application, and the application then gets the response and can do whatever it needs to do.
Yeah. And so it's interesting because it uses Nostr relays to kind of send those messages around.
Yeah.
And I guess it unlocks different use cases and different ways of sort of connecting things, as you said, wallets and applications, where I guess historically people might have had to have everything all in one. And I guess that was the problem, right? Because then how many people are going to build this wallet and that particular application together?
Yeah.
Whereas, I guess that's the power of sort of decoupling them, I guess.
Yep, very much. And also, like, these applications can focus on their USPs. They don't need to build Lightning wallets. There are special Lightning wallets. There are especially wallets that hold your money and do the Lightning stuff or whatever comes in the future, right? So these applications then focus on building the best Nostr client, the best point of sale application, the best podcasting app, and so on. And whatever it is, right? They don't need to deal with the Lightning complexity because it's kind of, there is a standard
that's the power
API
of
for that.
The decoupling aspect of it. Yeah, so who are the main people working on Nostr Wallet Connect itself? Like, who's involved with that? I'm curious.
So it's a growing community. Like initially it was initiated by Amethyst and us and with Alby, with the goal of making zapping in the Amethyst application quite easy. Before that, you always had to switch. You were an Amethyst as a Nostr client.
Right?
You have to switch it, pay the invoice, and then go back and so on. And this is obviously not a nice experience. And that's why this was the concept. The great thing to add this on the relay concept or using Nostr Wallet Connect is it solves the problem of connecting to the node, even if it runs, for example, at home. And some of the listeners might have done that. If you had an Umbrel and you wanted to use SUSE or whatever, then you had to go through Tor to connect that, and it was quite complicated, and it was very slow and often unreliable. And this problem is solved because we kind of have this relay system somehow in between, which also adds some privacy.
Yeah, that's really fascinating.
So that's actually pretty cool. So.
Yeah, I mean, that is fascinating. I remember, my first experience at the Lightning Conference in Berlin, I think it was October or November of 2019. And I had a Zeus connecting over Tor to my, my node back home in Sydney at that time.
Yeah.
And it was, it was really slow, right? But I mean, I still did it because that was kind of, that was like the cool way, the cool way to do it. But nowadays, this would be so much faster, even if you didn't have an easy way to sort of tunnel back to your home network where if you have your node there, then this is like an easy way. Whereas if both things are kind of watching this Nostr relay and what Nostr Wallet Connect, now it's just a much easier experience. So that's actually really cool.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's amazing how fast it actually is. So, and it's thanks to this concept. And also here, the cool thing is it's quite independent. So, it's using the Nostr infrastructure. This is the open Nostr infrastructure, and it builds on all the tools that are built in this ecosystem, right? So there are many relay implementations that theoretically could be used. There are many SDKs in Nostr that can be used to do these kind of things. So it's nothing, Alby Hub or Alby specific or wallet specific. It's tapping into this bigger ecosystem, which is powerful.
Yeah, I think that it really does kind of spell out, I guess, the power of some of these open standards and open interaction between different apps and wallets and things. So do you want to just touch on Alby Go for a minute? I understand this is the mobile application, so I guess you can connect that to your other Alby components.
Yeah. So again, it's actually a quite simple application that is using NWC. So it's kind of this front end that, and we like, or maybe, it's a front end for everything that you need when you want to pay with Bitcoin on the go. Right. And we wanted also here to focus on simplicity. So it's the most simple Lightning application that you can use on the go to send and receive payments. So it has a receive button and has a send button, and that's basically it. It shows the transaction history if you want, but you press send, you scan a QR code, and that's it. And it's built on top of NWC again. So you don't hold keys or whatever in the wallet. So that's why the wallet is also, again, very simple and secure. You connect it to a remote wallet, connect it to the Alby Hub or any of the other NWC wallets that are out there. And the functionality is then quite the same. I scan a QR code with a Lightning invoice in like a bar, in the Popkey bar, for example, or one of the shops in El Salvador or so. And an NWC message is sent to the wallet. The wallet checks the permission and sees, okay, cool. Yeah, I know this application. I got the permission is set. There is a budget maximum set, for example. It's below a certain amount and so on. The payment is executed, and then it goes back to the mobile wallet. And so this is our first, people have been asking for a long time for an Alby mobile wallet, and this is now our first step towards that.
Interesting. And so that allows you to be self-custodial, using your own node without having to do Tor or fancy VPN tunneling to go back to your own node. Exactly. Now, I know there are other protocols like, is it LND have LNC? I think it's called Lightning Node Connect or something like this, but I guess this is another way of doing it. And I guess this is, using the LDK stack, right, as you mentioned before. But because of using Nostr Wallet Connect, that, I guess, obviates the whole Tor or VPN back to your home network aspect.
Yeah. LNC is quite similar, but it's very focused on the LND stack.
Yeah.
And it's a bit I think it's an amazing protocol, but it's also a quite complex one. as far as I know, still only works with LND nodes. So it's quite coupled to LND. And also for developers, it's quite comes with a big baggage of like, I don't know what it actually is doing, like this WASM kind of package thing. And Nostr Wallet Connect is much more independent of the node, right? And it's much more lightweight.
I see. Yeah. So I guess you could say Nostr Wallet Connect is maybe a quote unquote more agnostic in a sense of what apps it's working with and what wallets it's working with. So maybe that's why there's been, from what I can tell amongst developers in Lightning World, it seems there's a bit of excitement around Nostr Wallet Connect. So I've seen that even just when I see developers talk about things. So that's really interesting. So yeah, we've covered some of those aspects. Let's talk a little bit about who are the main users for now. Is it just, everyday plebs? Is it small merchants? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So we in the Lightning space, our focus is on growing the pie, right? Growing the user base. So we are on the search for use cases that give new users, non-Bitcoiners, actually a reason to come to Lightning,
use Bitcoin,
to come to Bitcoin, to use Bitcoin, exactly. So this is the mission actually that we are on. And so right now it's definitely still quite diverse. We mentioned some that are like the typical Nostr users that are using these tools to send and receive SAPs. We have quite a lot of podcasters actually that receive podcast value-for-value payments, also with the new Alby Hub then. We have some small, especially smaller merchants that use it to receive payments, but the majority for sure I would say is like the general Bitcoin pleb that is excited about using Bitcoin on the web and various applications and experimenting with it. So.
Gotcha. Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I like what you guys are doing. I hope to see more, self-custodial adoption wherever it's possible. Of course, I understand it is going to be an uphill battle as well, given there's all these custodial wallets and apps out there, and most users won't know the difference, right? So they're just a lot of them are just gonna go for that. But we'll see. Maybe over time there'll be at least a decent chunk of the people who want to be self-custodial, and then maybe that's where they find their way to some of these self-custodial apps. But yeah, I'm curious if you have any thoughts on this kind of, do you think it's an uphill battle against custodial?
Custodial is always easier, that's for sure, right? If I give away everything to somebody else to do it, then I don't have to do it. Somebody else has to do it, so it's easier for me.
Right, and maybe less cost, or at least less cost to that customer until they get rugged or something, right?
Yes, I mean, for sure, somebody can maybe do it better on scale because I can share the costs among more users and so on. So yes, that's for sure like a thing. But it obviously comes with a lot of downsides, right? And I think it is also a question of a bit of education and understanding of the space. And if people understand that more, and people I think will understand that more, by just, all the education that you are doing and all the, we as a whole community are doing, people are valuing that. So I think for sure that is the future. And at the same time, it is becoming easier. It is becoming so much easier to use, right? So I still compare it, or this typical comparison to the early days of the internet, where you had to get a modem and you had to get, enter some SMTP codes to send an email, and then you said nobody has an email client and whatnot. So it's kind of similar. The tools are getting easier, and with that also being self-sovereign becomes easier. But I think in the future, both will have their places. There will be bigger companies with a lot of resources that can go through also the regulatory requirements, and there will be users that prefer going through KYCs and all these limitations to do it. But there will be a lot of users also that value being able to run the nodes on their small Raspberry Pi at home or on a small device at home, or wherever it is. And yeah, as I said, I think this will become much, much more easier. And we've seen that in the recent years that it becomes much easier. So we'll see where it goes. So it's going to be solved either on a technological side or it's on a KYC regulatory side. And I think for sure we are here for solving it on the technological side.
Yeah, I think a very astute comment. So yeah, I think it's a really cool project. I like what you guys are doing. I hope to see more adoption of it. Yeah, as I said, as we were talking about, there's Alby extension, which is a browser extension. There's Alby Hub, where you can run your Lightning node either in the cloud or on your own at home. And Alby Go, which is the mobile portal into that, if you will. And so listeners, check it out. It's getalby.com. You can follow Bumi on x.com/Bumi, and I'll also include your Nostr npub in the show notes, as always. But Bumi, thanks for joining me, and keep up the great work.
Thank you so much. Awesome. Thank you for having me.